Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Hello, hi, how are you? Hi, Yokai, Irene, how are you? Good afternoon. Hello, Spilisiwe. Yes, you are early today. Hi, my Eddie. Hello, Fari. Hello, everyone. We are just waiting just for a few of us. Hope your day in lockdown has been good. Hi, Justina. Hi, Fari. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. My glasses are straight. Yeah. Hi, Tracy. Tacy. Hello. Great. Today we're talking about law. So we're talking about preparation in law, and I've got with me a very good special guest, Andrew Nyamayaro, and he's going to join us now, and I'll let him introduce himself. But it's great to see you. Hi, Mercy. Hi, Tay. Hi, Diana. Please, can you share? Please invite your friends, tag them so that we can just share the information that we're there. We also want to hear from you guys. Have questions, if you've got questions, if you've got experiences. So please share. Press the share button. Please like and also tag so that we can get more and more people on here. Thank you so much. Hello, Pastor Kalonga. How are you? It's great. I am fine. My glasses, as you can see, are steaming. I don't know why. They keep steaming. So I'm wiping them. They keep steaming. Right. They should be fine now. They keep steaming. Thank you, Fari, for tagging Getty. Thank you so much. Great. Good. I think we are a few now. We can start, and I'm going to just invite Mr. Nyamayaro on, and I'm just going to add him onto the stream, and we're just going to talk about, yes, legal preparation. Hello, Mr. Nyamayaro.
Hello, Rumbi. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I've got used to working from home now, so
That's
I
good.
think this is a new lifestyle that is starting up.
Yes, that's good if you're used to it. We don't see each other anymore because we are all locked in and working from home. So
Yeah,
it's good that we can do this, and we can just talk about some of the things that we do at work and helping people to prepare legally. So I'm going to let you just perhaps introduce yourself so that people can get to know you and what you do. Some know you, some may not know you.
thank you, Rumbi. My name is Andrew Nyamayaro. I'm the principal of Tan Law Solicitors, which is based really in Coventry, at the Coventry City Center. I'm a legal practitioner registered in Zimbabwe since the year 2000. I'm not practicing in Zimbabwe at the moment, but at the moment I'm based in the UK, where I'm a registered solicitor, and I've got other accreditations which I have. So I'm a solicitor in the UK, the principal of Tan Law Solicitors, and the current vice president of the Warwickshire Law Society and the public relations officer.
Wonderful. Oh, so the current vice president of the Law Society, the principal of Tan Law Solicitors, my boss, and the public relations officer for the Warwickshire Law Society. That's really good. And that's probably something that you don't talk about a lot. I always see your badge, but it's,
Yeah.
you're representing us Black ethnic minorities in the law society. So that's really good.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And you're also a multi-award winning solicitor, isn't it? You've won quite a few awards.
Oh yes, we've been able to win a few awards in the past year and the previous years as well. So yeah, we are grateful for the work that we do as a firm, for the staff, for the work that they do, and the recognition that we're also getting from the community for the work that we do.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's good. A lot of work is going on. A lot of people are being helped, and it's good. It's COVID-19 has affected us at work, working from home, and some of the staff have had to stop. So it's been a challenging time. How have you personally found it? With just how are you? You know, how have you found it mentally and business-wise? How has it been?
In terms of personal life, it has been, I think I did not spend more than 3 or 4 days in the house for the past 3 or 4 years because I was always busy to go to the office 8 a.m. in the morning, leave the office 8 p.m. in the evening, and now from the 24th of March, I've been working from home nearly 6 days a week or maybe 7 days a week. Just go to the office, pick some letters, just do some scanning or printing, and then go home. So it's something that is changed a lot there, and the children are also in the house most of the time. Although my children are teenagers, so I think this self-isolation doesn't really affect them because they always stay in their rooms most of the time, chatting with their friends and so forth.
Yeah.
Yes, my wife works for the NHS, and as you have said, thank you to all NHS and all key workers. So
Yes.
yeah, she's going to work in the hospital. So thanks to all the key workers as well, and the NHS. In terms of work, we are not operating from the office.
Yeah.
Office is closed, but business is going on as usual. The telephones are being answered, and we have got people who check on our letters and mail on a daily basis.
Mm.
We have got some systems that allow us to work from home, our case management system, our emails, and we are able to consult with clients over the phone, on WhatsApp, and on Zoom, or any other media that is
Mm.
possible between ourselves and the client.
That's great. So it's business as usual.
It's business as usual.
Yeah, yeah. The business as usual. That's great. So we're talking about today. We want to talk about preparation. So I'm sure we've been writing quite a lot of wills, but we want to talk about the legal preparation, what people can do, what people what they can do to prepare, and perhaps maybe to start with, from your experience, what have you seen? What are things that have what can happen, problems that can happen if people die interstate without having a will?
Okay, so for me, let me start explaining the term that you have used, which is called interstate. If
Mm-hmm.
someone dies interstate, it means that they've died without making a will. So if someone
Yeah.
dies without making a will, it means that their property, the guardianship of their children, and issues like that are dealt in terms of what is called the intestacy rules, which are very
Mm-hmm.
strict. You have got no control of what's going to happen if you cannot detect what's going to happen because you've died intestate. And the major challenge of dying intestate is that your wishes will not be carried over, and
Mm-hmm.
some of your family members might not benefit from your estate. If, for example, you are living with a partner and you are not married, then that partner might be excluded from your estate. Your stepchildren might not be included in your estate distribution as well. So Those are the main challenges that you face if you die intestate. So that is why it is important for someone to have a will.
So if I can just stop you there. So if people are, because a lot of people may be in situations where they are varikuchaya mapoto, as we would say, where they live together as partners and they're not legally married. So they don't have a marriage with the marriage registrar. So there are lots of people who live together, or people who are gay and they live together and they're partners, and maybe before the civil partnership rules came into place, they wouldn't have been able to get married. So there's lots of different situations where, so you're living with your partner and you are not married, and then one of you dies. So and you've got children here, you've got some children in Zim. Who would get under your estate? Who would it go to?
If it's in terms of intestacy, then it will normally, if there's children involved, for example, then maybe the state will be involved, social service gets involved, and then they might then try to see if there's any nearest relatives that might be there who might be able to take care of the children. And if they cannot locate anyone else, then ultimately those children might end up under the care of the state, under foster parents, or depending on the age of the children, if they can be adopted or something like that. Your properties are where you don't have a will ultimately, and if it cannot then be given to your beneficiaries as your children, if they cannot be located or something like that, then it might end up ultimately maybe within the state or given to state that way.
So it means that your partner would just, if there's no will, then it's automatic that your partner is not viewed as your relative. They are not viewed as anyone really, so they wouldn't get anything. So if it's a male partner who dies, so I want to give another scenario just so we can understand why we keep on going on about having a will, because it would be unfair where you've been living together, you're paying the bills, you've got a stash of, say, you've saved in your account £50,000 or 100,000, or you've got a house that you bought in Zimbabwe, several properties you've got in Zim, and you die, and then you've got your adult children, for example. So the people who would get under the interstate rules where you don't have a will are your adult children. So your partner who you've been living with wouldn't get anything, isn't it?
Ultimately, your partner will end up not getting anything because of the intestacy rules. So your children will then be entitled as the beneficiaries under those circumstances.
Yeah. And we've got situations like that, especially here in the diaspora, I think, where people have had families in Zimbabwe and maybe they've got children there. Sometimes they've even got a wife who they have married, who they were married to in Zimbabwe under Chapter 37. Then they come here to England, and the wife maybe she wasn't able to come because of visas. And then they find a new partner, they live together here, but they can't get married because maybe they haven't got a divorce. But for all intents and purposes, that marriage, they've been separated, they are not together, they've been together maybe for 12 years, and maybe they don't have papers. There's so many different types of scenarios. So in those cases, it can end up now the partner who has been here with you will not benefit, but maybe your wife, the one who married under Chapter 37, would benefit under the interstate rules, isn't it?
So under the circumstances, it will be the partner or the spouse who's recognized in terms of the law as the spouse of that person, who will then be recognized as a beneficiary of the estate, rather than the person who is an unmarried partner. Obviously, there might be challenges that it will have to go to court, and being challenged in the probate registry, or maybe in Zimbabwe in the High Court and so forth. But the starting point will be you're excluded, and that person who has got a medical certificate and who was away for the past 10 years might have, in terms of ranking, a higher rank than yourself to the estate under the circumstances.
Yeah. So those are some of the things. I think those are some of the scenarios, isn't it, that can happen. And there's so many different dynamics. But you mentioned, I just wrote when you were talking about interstate rules, and then you talked about stepchildren. You said that the stepchildren could be left out. So where you've got stepchildren who you've lived with and they're your children, they really just are like your own children. But if you don't have a will and you die, they wouldn't automatically get anything.
Yes, that's the correct position.
Yeah. So those are things where that can really be. I think you were going to tell us about the importance of a will, isn't it? So you talked about the interstate and how it is. And I think we're not going to go into the rules because they can be quite complex. But
Yes, quite a big subject.
Examples of some of the things that can happen which are not intended. But so you were going to go on to talk about what is the benefit of having a will.
Okay.
Isn't it?
So I will start by defining what is a will. And a will basically is a legal document, a legal instrument whereby you convey your wishes of what you want to happen after you've passed on. So a will to be valid, either in Zimbabwe or in the UK, is that you have to sign the will, and then it has to be witnessed. And then so at the moment with the COVID-19, I wrote an article which is on air and radio at the moment about executing a will in terms of a pandemic and an endemic. Yeah. So if the will, you make it, you don't have to necessarily to go to a solicitor to make a will. You can write on a piece of paper, write your wishes. I want my children to stay with so and so. I want this to be done. I want my head to go to this. I want this house to go to this person. So you can do it by yourself, but it's always advisable to go to someone who's a professional who knows what they are doing to draft the will for you, because it's technical, like you are saying. You might write a will which you do not want to revoke your other previous wishes, but because you've not done it properly, you might end up revoking some particular wishes which you wanted to maintain. So the will is got, when we draft a will ourselves, we've got a certain structure that we follow. We put in your names, and we appoint the person who's making the will is called a testator, and the person who will be mandated to carry out your wishes in the will is called an executor. And the people who are benefiting from the will are called beneficiaries. So you go to a solicitor or to a will writer, they will tell you who can be appointed as your executor, who can be appointed, who can be your beneficiaries. Sometimes in terms of beneficiaries, I've dealt with cases where some people say, I don't want my child to be a beneficiary for ABC reasons. We tell you the advantages and disadvantages of doing that. Why excluding a child? Are you not opening it up to be challenged in the probate later, or things like that? So so it will have the revocation clauses. It will have the clauses of granting the executor the powers, the guardianship, distribution of the properties, and so forth. And the wills, it's not very much expensive to make a will in this country. You are looking at maybe anything from about £150 to about £400, depending on the complexity of the will and the properties that you are going to be dealing with. A single person normally would just want to make their single will. But if someone is married, sometimes you might need to make what is called a mirror will. So husband and wife or partners might say, I'm going to leave this to you, you're going to leave this to me. These are our wishes regarding the children. You do the same almost similar or mirror wills, expressing your wishes in those wills, and also depending on the number of properties that you have or the number of assets that you have, you might have to decide. Then that's another advantage of going to someone who knows what they are doing, is that is it best under the circumstances just to write a simple will, or you need to write a will with a trust in it? Because because you might have some properties that you might want to leave in trust, or even when you die yourself, you might just want to leave a life interest in your properties to your spouse, and then that property then passes on to your children. So you have to consider all those.
I want to stop you there. Sorry, Andrew. I just want to stop you there, because you've said something which I think I want us to capture right there, which was about you talked about the life interest. So you talked about when you've got multiple properties and things like that, and what a will is. And with one of the things that can happen is where you have spouses and you write mirror wills. So you would say if Andrew passes away, you would give it to Mrs. Nyamayaro and vice versa, and you just swap. You mirror each other. But when one of the, so say like we've had so many deaths with COVID now, and one spouse dies and the other one is left. And I think especially Kabari Varume, they get women, it's very rare kuti a woman would automatically would get married very fast. So they would get married eventually, but for men, they get married a bit quicker. So you talked about, so what can people have in there, when they're writing their wills? How can they safeguard kuti the children? Because I think me as a mother, as a woman, I'm very much, mothers were very maternal. And so one of the things is, a lot of people ask questions, if I were to die, even if I live with my husband, what if he remarries and my children end up being kicked out, or they end up, because a situation can happen where people write wills, like we've advised them, dies, maybe the spouse dies, the husband remarries, he brings in a new wife, and then he dies without a will. Then the new wife inherits, and the children also get something, or he writes a will with his new wife and gives her the house, and your children are now left. I hope that's making sense. So the children are now
it's making sense,
with nothing, because if their father dies and the stepmother is the one who inherits, because Baba has written a new will giving everything to his wife. So what happens then to the children? So those are some of the things that maybe you talked about the life interest. So I wanted you just to labor on that point so that people can understand kuti life interest yacho inorevachi, and how does it benefit you in the event that someone, what does that mean relating to property?
Okay, so a life interest means that what I'm saying is that, for example, where you have bought a house together, where you joint owners of the house, you've got 50% ownership of the house, or maybe you've got different properties. The wife owns your own properties, the husband owns the properties in his name, the wife owns properties in her own name, and or things like that. Life interest means that I am allowing you to live in that particular property or to use that particular asset as long as you live. But I'm not giving you necessarily the property. I'm giving you the benefit of the use or the enjoyment of that particular property. It might be a house or a car. So in what you were saying, if someone then gets married, moved on in their life, it is important in that will to create just a life interest, or to create a trust where you've got a property trust or a discretionary trust within the will, so much that if that person gets married to someone else, that property will not then devolve to their new spouse at the detriment of your children. Because once they get married, if we get time, maybe we might comment on issues of inheritance checks and things like that. So whatever benefit that you have might then end up going to the new wife or husband of that has been left when you passed away. So that's where it becomes important to have a trust within the will, or a trust separately, to safeguard the property from either when the partner gets married again, or just to say that the children, you've got one house, but you don't want it to belong to your eldest child A, or you don't want it to remain with your eldest child B. In Zimbabwe, sometimes it might be said, okay, this house then will devolve under customary law to the eldest son in the family, but you've got daughters, you've got son, yeah. So you just create your trust and say, in this house, everyone has got the right to use it. You've got 25% interest in this house, and if you know, something like that. So it is important to have a trust and those provisions in the will.
That's great. That's true, and that's the importance, you know, because you can get. I've seen a lot of free wills on the internet. You can do it yourself. You can go online on Google. You can do your own will. Anyone can do it. But the problem that you have is sometimes you're not going to think of the possibilities of what could happen. And I can see Pastor Kalonga here. She said, my stepmother changed the name of our dad's house to her own surname. So especially when in Malawi, in Zimbabwe, it's easy. People can go and change the names. And even here, you know, they can convince someone to say, when someone is in love, they can do anything. And then it can end up becoming a problem for the children, which is important to safeguard the rights in the event of things changing. And it can happen the other way around, isn't it? That if the mom is the one who survives and then she gets married and then maybe passes away, then her new husband can then be the one who inherits everything to the detriment of the children. So having a trust helps. Having a trust helps to be able to safeguard the interests of people. The other thing is where you buy property in as joint tenants, and the difference between joint tenants and tenants in common. Sometimes you have to sever the tenancy so that you can inherit your 50% is your 50%, and you can then distribute that in a way to your children and maybe the other half to your husband. But where you can't, where the tenancy hasn't been severed and you own a property together with your spouse, it would automatically go to them. So those are other things that when you go to someone who can help and advise you, they can tell you they can go through your situation and then say, you know what, it's better to do this, get a trust, do this, do that. And tomorrow we're having Petronella, who's a lawyer practicing in Zimbabwe, and she's going to talk about the law in Zimbabwe, because there's a difference. Your will in England that you write and register and have it here, it's important for you to have another will for your property in Zimbabwe, and that should also be registered with the Master of the High Court. So she's going to talk about that, and she's an assistant master, so she's also going to talk about some of that tomorrow relating to property in Zimbabwe, because the laws are slightly different as well. So it's important for us to cover both, for people who've got, I think a lot of people have actually got property in Zim. When, like in the early years when we came here, I think everyone was saying, I'm going back home. So we were all buying to go home, or people were not sure about whether they would stay here. So there might be people with property in Zim and property here. So Mr. Nyamayaro, I wanted to ask you as well about, before you go on about the benefit of a will, you mentioned something about an executor. So I would like perhaps for you to expand on that, Kuti. What is an executor? What do they do? How does it help? You know, what is the benefit of having an executor, a professional one or a family member? How does that help?
Okay, you can either have a professional one. You can now appoint your solicitor, your banker, your accountant to be the executor. or you can have a family member whom you trust, or a friend whom you trust to be your executor. So their main job really is to make sure that your estate, your death estate, is distributed and managed according to your wishes and in accordance with the law. So, for example, if someone passes away and then you've obtained the death certificate, then if I'm using the UK example, they will then have to approach the probate registry, register the estate there. Then they have to make sure that they gather all your assets. If you've got money, you've got a funeral policy, you've got a life insurance, you've got shares and dividends that you had somewhere else that need to be cashed in, or that needs to be. So effectively, they doing an inventory of your assets, whatever you have, and then your liabilities, and then they will present it to the registry. In the UK, the probate has to be done within 6 months, unless if there is an extension if you cannot finish to do the probate. So they will manage that. Anyway, so I've spoken of the people who can qualify to be an executor. It's your prerogative as the testator or testator, except to choose whomsoever you want to choose. But it's not always advisable, and I don't think it can be properly legal for you to then appoint a beneficiary to be an executor, because there's a kind of conflict that is in there. So someone who's not a beneficiary would be a good executor of the estate.
So that's good. And an executor can help when you've got. I've when I worked at the Solicitors Regulation Authority, one of the areas that we saw a lot of complaints was in probate, because of beneficiaries fighting. So the beneficiaries would have their own lawyer. Then you would have the executor, each one with their own lawyer, because they're fighting about how long it takes to administer the estate and things that happened. And I saw that it was quite beneficial, especially with people who've got multiple properties, who've got a lot of like pensions, like they've who've got estate which is quite a chunky estate, that it's beneficial. And also where you have cross-border assets, it's beneficial to have executors who can just take care of that, because people will be grieving. You don't want to be running around going to probate, doing this when you are grieving. And then with the executors, they charge a fee, a percentage of the value of the estate. So it's not free. It's something that they charge for that, but it takes away from you as the beneficiary, the family. One, you're grieving. You don't want to be running around doing all these things. But two, fighting. So sometimes if it's a family member who's also a beneficiary, then it can end up becoming quite a problem, because people can end up fighting quite a lot. And we've got a comment here. I'll just go to the comments. Mercy, she asked, what about if you also have property in the USA? Is anyone going to address that? Both of us, I don't think we want to try and guess about USA law. I don't know. But we will look for one, because I'm sure there's a lot of Zimbabwean lawyers in the USA who can probably advise on that. But we don't know about that. And then Hilton Fungai said, what is the quality of period combined occupancy? And then you went on to say 6 months. So I'm not sure what that means. If perhaps you could expagorate, Hilton, and tell us what you mean by do you know, Andrew, what the quality of period combined occupancy?
No, it's not ringing a bell at the moment, unless if he expands what he wants to say.
Yeah, maybe if you could expand. And Mama, thank you, Mama, for watching and supporting. And you always thought that one will for both UK and Zimbabwe was enough. So that's very, thank you so much. And a lot of people think that.
The challenge of having one will for Zimbabwe, UK, Australia, or USA, if you've got properties all over the world, is that this is a multi jurisdictions with more different laws. So it's so that will be difficult. It's possible to have one will for all jurisdictions, but practically difficult to manage. So it's always advisable to have each will for each jurisdiction. But however, it might in the will, it's also important to then mention that you have got a will, like I said, they've got a revocation clause. So you make sure when you revoke, say, you are revoking for a will that has been done in the UK only, or if you're making an addendum or a will for changing a will in the UK. Also, on another point that you mentioned about an executor, people are always reluctant to become executors because of the facts that you've mentioned, infighting between beneficiaries, being attacked by beneficiaries. There's also the issue of liability, and there's the issue of costs. So all those things need to be addressed, if possible, in the will, that the cost of administering the will be borne out of the estate, and you are indemnifying them from any liability that might come. Obviously, you expect them to act reasonably under the circumstances.
Yeah. And
there's
I think
also the issue of if you've got minor children, you also need to appoint people who will become guardians for your children. So it does not necessarily mean that the executor can be the guardian of your minor children. You can appoint someone different, or you can appoint the executor to be the guardian for your children as well.
Yeah, so you're going to appoint an executor to be the guardian of the children. And I want us to touch on that a little bit more. I'm just going to answer Londi Mazitulela, who asked, what's the charge for executors? I think it's recommended, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong there, or Emily as well, you can comment. I think it's between 1% to 5%. I think there's a range, isn't it, in the UK, between one of the value of the estate. So that will be the fees, but they can be challenged. They can also be assessed. So they can assess to see if they're unreasonable. If they haven't done anything and they charge a high fee, then it can be you can get a what was used to be called a remuneration certificate, where it would be assessed to see whether they are fair and reasonable. I think that would happen. So yeah, between 1% to 5%. Emily, yeah, that's right. So hopefully that's answered your question. And then you were talking about the guardianship, which is very important again, that a guardian, because the type of scenarios we could have. Let me give an example. Like here in the diaspora, we have we are here, we live in England, our family members might live in Zimbabwe, and then when if someone dies early and they leave minor children, the decisions around that child as to where will the child live, who will they live with, should they go and live in Zimbabwe, should they continue to stay here, what's the best interest of the children, what is better for them. It's a decision that if you haven't left your specific wishes, it's now left to other people. So if you haven't made not just leaving your wishes, but also having someone who will carry out your wishes. I think that's the important thing about the professional executors as well, who double up as guardians, because they will be there to fight, to say, this is what Jack wanted. So I am standing and making sure that Jack's wishes are going to be carried out. But if you don't have someone to stand for you, it can end up becoming a family fight, with people saying that's not what they meant, and so they spoke to me and they said something else, or this must be an old will, because when I spoke to them, they never said that, and things like that. So when you've got an executor who can carry out the wishes, it also makes sense. But also in respect of the children, if they double up as a guardian, that helps. So it's always good to appoint a guardian for the children. so that their best interests can be met. Because you might have people, Mr. Nyamayaro, it's not unusual, isn't it, where you have someone who has left a lot of life policies, their children are sorted financially, and the people would be wanting to look after those children so that they can take advantage of kupedza mari yacho, and the children will end up not having anything because the people who are supposed to be looking after have become greedy. But where you have someone who doesn't stand to gain and they're being paid for their time, it might be even just better to have a professional executor who can also be a guardian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So with the wills again, it is also important that once you've executed your will legally, like I've said, you sign it in front of the witnesses. I mean, something that is technical there, but you have to sign in front of the witnesses. They don't have to know that it's a will that you are signing. They just have to know that it's a document you are signing. They see you signing, then then they sign there as well. Social distancing is a challenge at the moment because of COVID. Because people have got to maintain their social distance. I'm sure there's some relaxed rules which are there at the moment. Make sure the will is also stored somewhere where it's accessible, and make sure that most people know that there's a will. So your solicitor must have a copy if possible, maybe your accountant or the bank. In Zimbabwe, you can register it with the master. You've got someone coming in tomorrow, you can register with the master of the High Court. I think it's about $5 or something like that, or equivalent, which they have to pay to register with the master of the High Court. You have a copy of the will, because there's no point of having a will and then you keep it a secret and it's never found as a document. So it has to be something which is accessible.
Yeah, that's true. So storage of wills, making sure that people know about it, that's very important. And you talked about social distancing and wills. I actually read today on the Law Society put out an article. It was on LinkedIn, and they said that solicitors who are executing wills are now classed as key workers. So there's a whole list of solicitors and barristers who are classed as key workers for testing for COVID. So they've noted that it's very important for people to be executing their wills during this time. So I found it quite interesting that solicitors executing wills have been put into that group of key workers who can also get tested so that they're able to do that. And that's why I think we are trying to stress this, because it's so important. It's brought our whole mortality to we know that we don't have unlimited time. I think it's reminded us. So it's important to get those things in order so that we don't have problems ahead. I just want us to address some of the questions. Wongi, I'll leave you to answer this one, Mr. Nyamayaro. Wongi Amanda, she says she's stirring this one. She's coming up with, she says, what happens if a couple die together, but they have separate wills? What if each of them have appointed different guardians, or even different beneficiaries for jointly owned assets?
Okay, there's a lot of technicalities in terms of will drafting that we need to consider for such a situation. So when a couple dies together, one of the things is that there is a presumption where you die together that the oldest person between the two of you died first. That that can be, like I said, is a presumption, and so you can always put clauses in the will to say, in the event that we die, say for example, within 28 days of each other, then this will happen, and so forth. So where you die together, then if you have gone to a solicitor, they would have put in clauses to say that if we die together, then my good friend is going to do this with the children and is going to do this with the properties. So you need to think of those circumstances where there is a simultaneous death, or where there's death within a short period of each other. So like you say, if you die within 20 days of each other, then you're presumed to have died at the same time, and this is going to happen, and so forth. So it's just how it's going to be dealt with in terms of the instructions that you give to the solicitor or the person drafting the will.
And I think as well, you do talk about if we, because you might leave things to your partner, and then if they predecease you, you have clauses to cover all those eventualities.
Yeah.
And also, you would be hopeful that that people married couples would have communicated and talked about these things, because it's so important for them to actually talk about, okay, if we die together, what would happen to the kids? What would happen here? So it can also show that there were problems before, because if people have got totally different, then that's also a sign of trouble. But then it's in the drafting that's important. The drafting is very important, because you can have something that you think, I've got a will, but it's a useless piece of paper because it's drafted in a way that doesn't cover certain eventualities and certain things that can happen. And even in appointing executors, it's important to say, if you say Andrew Nyamayaro is the executor. If he is deceased, then Rumbidzai Vunzawabaya will be the executor. If she is deceased, then any partner or solicitor at TAN law, so that it's covered. But if you just put that one person, then what happens? So it's in the drafting, which is important. And I know a lot of things, you can get them very quickly online, but it's so important to make sure that you do get advice. And some of the things that, like, I'm not a specialist in tax, and tax planning and estate planning. I'm not an expert in that. So if it comes to inheritance tax and all that, I might say to someone, you know what, you're better off going to see somebody else who specializes in this area, so that you get the right advice. Because I could tell you, and you end up in trouble. But somebody else who specializes in that will be able to help you. So it's important in the drafting as well. So Pastor Elizabeth has said, what about if you have a business in this country and you and your partner have built together and your husband left you? Are you entitled to claim anything from the business, or are you not entitled to claim any benefit of the business whilst you are on separation?
Okay, I think this is not a strictly wills or a probate question. I think it is something that may be off the platform we can discuss and take more instructions and then deal with it. Yeah. I don't know if you've got a different take to that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's something that we can probably answer. But the other thing that comes from that question is, when what happens when you've talked about being separated. So it's important here, when you die. We talked about dying interstate when you don't have a will. So there's a lot of Zimbabweans who are in business together. I'm in a business with my husband. People are in a business, they start businesses together. Domiciliary care, supported living, as couples, lots of people have got businesses they put in together. You build that business together, you put the money in, your directors. Then you separate, but you don't divorce. So there's one scenario where you have a situationship where you separate, but you don't divorce. Then if one of you dies without a will, the other one will benefit. They're the director in the company, so they'll just benefit totally for something that they haven't been working in. So it's so important for people to sort out things. Don't leave things unsorted. So if your relationship has ended and there's no hope, we don't want people to divorce, but there's no hope of getting back together, and you've got business partnerships, then it's very important to sort everything out. Because if you need to get a divorce. And then the business aspect of it, deal with it as well. Because you really don't want, you end up being so angry and bitter, because those would not have been your wishes, that this particular person would have benefited from, the business side of it. Or you can have another situation where you have a business together, and you have a business together, and you're working at it together, and you build it up and build it up and build it up, and then you divorce. and then you've now got to deal with the business division of assets in the business, which is something separate, or someone dies and someone takes over. So it's so important to be able to really think not emotionally and too much in love about business decisions. I think business decisions should be business decisions, and it's good to get advice about business because it can cause a lot of problems. You know, it can cause, that's a whole nother problem issue that you've talked about, Pastor Elizabeth, because it's a big issue.
It's a topic in its own.
It's a topic in its own when business is you know, when there's a problem in business. That's so true.
Can I just comment on something, Rumbi? While you also have a will, it is also important to have what is called a lasting power of attorney.
Oh, yes.
Because a will deals with your wishes and estate when you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's when the will kicks in. But a lasting power of attorney deals with your property and your things while you are still alive. There's mainly two types of lasting powers of attorney. There's a health and welfare lasting power of attorney, and then there is a property lasting power of attorney. If, God forbid, someone is now on the ventilator because of COVID, now they can't go to the bank to withdraw the money, they can't pay the rent, they can't do this and that. The family are somehow disabled to do anything because someone does not have a lasting power of attorney. But if someone has the lasting power of attorney, then the person who has been appointed as the attorney can go to the bank, withdraw money, or deal with the welfare of the children and things like that. So the lasting power of attorney will kick in where someone is in a medical conditions where they cannot act themselves, or maybe because of mental health issues, you don't have the capacity to reason. You are now sectioned under the Mental Health Act or something like that. If there's no lasting power of attorney, then the doctors will start making the decision for you. The family can't make the decisions of what medication you can take, what treatment you can take, and so forth. The banks cannot release money and things like that. So a lasting power of attorney is also important, especially maybe in this COVID situation where everyone is vulnerable under the circumstances.
Very, very true. So the lasting powers of attorney are so important, and even maybe more important, you know, they're very important. And we encourage everyone to have one and to take one, especially with what's happening with COVID. A lot of people, you're separated from everyone, you can't get access, and it's happening so quickly. I think if you've read the stories of people going into intensive care units and they're on the ventilator, you know, if you think 21,000 people have died, you can imagine the calamity around that and why there's such a national need for lasting powers of attorney, for wills. It's all highlighted right at the fore of our minds. You know, we need to get these things in order. So very important to have lasting powers of attorney for health and for finance. So true. I would encourage everybody to get one, and I'd encourage everyone to have a will, have trust, and just sort things out whilst you can, because you don't want to get into situations where things are, after you're gone, there's a lot of infighting, a lot of arguments. People are taking each other to court. People are arguing that I'm the wife, I'm not, and because we've got such complicated estates and complicated lives, I think it's important to be able to safeguard the rights of children, stepchildren, children from previous relationships, children, you know, make sure that everyone is catered for in a will, and it's important to be able to do that. I think our time is coming up. We've just got 5 minutes. If there's anyone who's got any questions or anything, or any scenarios that they have that they want to talk about, or Mr. Nyamayaro, if you've got anything else that you want to just share, we've just got a few minutes, and then Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Rumbi. Outside the topic of wills and lasting powers of attorney and probate, I didn't have enough time to catch on the topic of probate, but maybe on another occasion you can speak about inheritance, how you deal with your estate allowances that we have under the new band, 325 each person, 625 a couple, the gifts that you can. I mean, inheritance tax planning. You need to because you might have an estate or with 2 million, and the inheritance tax in the UK is 40%. So is it really worth it for you to keep your 2 million estate and then be taxed at 2 million less 325 and 40%, or you start dealing with your estate now, you start making allowable gifts and presents.
Okay.
Yeah, inheritance tax planning, because you can give £10,000 per annum as an allowance, £250 unlimited gifts to family members whosoever, political parties donations to charities. It's all about planning your tax so that you will not end up paying the 40% bill to the government. But that's a topic that will take another hour in itself.
Yeah, that's
Today, under immigration, an exciting case came out, the case of
yes.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes. So it's about someone who went to the tribunal with their immigration case under Article 8 and Article 3, having a serious medical condition, and saying that the medical condition qualifies under Article 3, was refused, and in the tribunals went all the way the ranks of the courts. And today the court said that a case which was there in the past, called N versus the Secretary of State of Home Department, is no longer the leading case. We have to follow the principles in a case that was decided in Europe, which is called Papuashvili, which is a more generous case, still stringent, but more generous than the case of N. So if someone had a medical case, which was refused, this might amount to a new ground to submit further submissions or to make a fresh claim. You can take it on from that one.
So that's great. I was just trying to post the link, but it's good. It's good, and a lot of people have got medical conditions, deportation, where they can apply for revocation, and also fresh claims. So it's so important. I think we should talk about that case more so that people can understand. But it's great news. And I've posted the link on the page before, so that's excellent. Yeah, that's good news. But yeah, thank you for that. So that's great news. And maybe we can even do another discussion about that, because I think it will help a lot of people who are failed asylum seekers. There are so many people who are still struggling, and so it's important as well to be able to talk about that and publicize that so people can know what they can do. But thank you so much, Mr. Nyamayaro. Thank you for joining. It was good to see you, because we don't see you anymore because of we don't see each other at work anymore. So that's great. Thank you. I hope that's been helpful for people. I think it's important to Gadzirira, to prepare, to Lungiselela. I'm very good at Ndebele, but I'm learning. I'm learning my Ndebele. So it's good to get ready. So thank you very much. I'm gonna Mr. Nyamayaro is gonna leave us, and then I'll just conclude, and then that's it for today. Thank you, Mr. Nyamayaro.
Okay, so as I leave, our contact details are Tanlo Solicitors. The office number is 024 77 63 2323, and our website is www.tanlaw.co.uk. Tanlo is Tango Alpha November Lima Alpha Whiskey.co.uk. Rumbi is part of the team. I'm part of the team. We are about 15 of us in the company. So there's someone always who can be able to deal with your matter or with your issue. Thank you so much, Rumbi, for having me, and God bless you.
Thank you. I put the details, I've typed them in, and I put a link to the website and the numbers as well. So get in touch with us. We'll help you. We'll sort you out, and make sure that there's no fighting after you are gone. So thank you very, very much, Mr. Nyamayaro. God bless you, and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
That's great. So thank you very much to Andrew Nyamayaro. That was great. Yes, we've been exercising social distancing. We're not seeing each other. So it was just good to be on together. So thank you for that. I've put on the details there for TAN Law, and I'll share the link as well on my page so that you can have easy access to it, so you don't have to go through all the comments. But hopefully you got the details from Andrew Nyamayaro. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Innocent Mass has just asked a question. As Zimbabwean man, I've seen a lack of participation on platforms like this as a key issue. How can we get in touch with Mr. Nyamayaro to invite you on men platforms? So he's given his number, and I will put those details. Send him an email, invite him, because we need the men to be talking about these. We need the men to be sorting these things out, and we need them to take the lead, not to lead us. So we need them to be doing that. So so thank you very much, for that. It's excellent for men to be more involved and to participate. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And Rumbidzai show is going to be on at 7. It's not a live, it's a pre-recorded. We're having Mama Sam, who talked about her son's death and his problem with drug addiction, and we're concluding that today. So she's going to be talking about how she recovered, and we've got an addiction counselor who will be on with her. So tune in. I think Facebook is more entertaining than TV, so tune in and get she'll be talking today at 7. So join her just now, and then tomorrow we've got a lawyer from Zimbabwe. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Please share this broadcast and tell your friends, and and just share and share the information. Thank you so much. God bless you. Stay safe.